Redefine access control with Impro Technologies Primo. Intuitive, customizable, and scalable software designed to deliver a premium access management experience. From the moment you log in, Primo makes security simple. A clear table of contents, intuitive submenus, and high visibility tabs. Hardware is automatically identified and installed, while contextual help is always available at the click of a button. Customization takes the experience even further. Tailor Primo to your industry or customer with personalized dashboards and flexible list views. Generate powerful reports directly from any screen and turn data into instant insight. Primo is built to scale. With hardware presets, configure once and deploy across your entire site. Manage permissions easily with access groups and profiles, whether your environment is a single site or a global enterprise, on-premise or in the cloud. Primo also supports multi-factor authentication, visitor management, CCTV integration, and multiple credential types, including RFID, PIN, QR codes, biometrics, and mobile credentials. Impro Technologies delivers trusted access control solutions with the flexibility and reliability modern businesses demand. Primo, convenient security, convenient control.
Hello and welcome from sunny Durban. I'm Gavin and I'm joined today with Hamish, our product manager, and Raphael, our product director. And we welcome you to the next Primo webinar. We're looking forward to the release of Primo version 2026.3. And today we're going to run through all of the latest headline features that we can expect to see. We've got quite a jam-packed session today. We're going to run through a couple of new features: OSS, which is Open Secure Standards, offline access control, operational compliance, and some improved and enhanced reporting. Before we get into today's program, just a quick mention, we have got a Q&A that's available. If you want to post any questions, look out for the Q&A button and you can just type in your question there. Our team of experts are there and ready to answer your questions. There's also some data sheets and brochures that you can look for under the chat section, which covers today's topics. So those are available for download. And yeah, let's just jump straight into it. Raphael, let's start off with OSS. So I think the first question that I've got is, what is OSS? And the second question is, let's discuss a little bit about offline access control. And I seem to think there's some confusion around what it is. Perhaps you can just clarify what it means in this context.
Thanks, Gavin, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So let's unpack the first question, which is, what is OSS? So OSS is a standard. It stands for Open Secure Standard, and it's a standard that lock manufacturers can choose to adopt. And there have been some really large lock manufacturers that have adopted the standard, which makes the use of offline access control a lot easier to adopt, because you have a choice of locks that you can choose when you're wanting to obviously implement this. Now let's tackle the topic of what is offline access control. And this, as you say, can be a little bit confusing if you come from an online access control background. And many of Impro's customers predominantly focus on online or wired access control. And in that context, offline has a slightly different meaning or interpretation. In that context, we refer to offline access control as a fail-safe. So when you've got, for example, a controller which loses its communication with its host or to other controllers, it can go into offline mode, which means that it decides autonomously whether to allow somebody entry or no entry. Some access controls work through transaction data, and they look and see whether a person has been allowed through that door previously. And then based on that, will allow access. In terms of Impro's controllers, those controllers have their own database of credential holders, and it has all of the access rights. So that controller will then, based on that data, determine whether somebody can come in or out. So that's the context of offline access control within an online access control, wide access control environment. What we're introducing with OSS is completely different architecture. So where somebody might be accustomed to having wired readers going to controllers, and controllers either communicating via RS485 or by IP, we are now offering a solution where you don't need to have controllers, and the validation takes place between secure encoded credentials and wireless locks. So the reason for offering this, as you can imagine, is that there's a number of applications out there where it's very expensive to have a wired solution. If you think of sprawling university campuses, not every single building is it feasible to open up tarred driveways and run cabling. So in order to build a business case for putting access control, you want to avoid those unnecessary costs. And offline access control allows you to make those type of installations viable because you're not having to put in the infrastructure. So that's at the heart of the offline value proposition, is that now you can facilitate access control in environments where previously you couldn't. I think of, for example, some heritage buildings like in Bloemfontein, you have the Supreme Court of Appeal or the High Court, where installers are not allowed to put any chasing on the buildings. Offline allows you to put your offline locks in place, and then you run your access control through these secure credentials. And so what we're offering here is a new way of doing access control.
So you make mention of OSS offline locks. What locks are we referring to here? I believe we have introduced support for Perio locks. And then aside from the wireless locks themselves, is there any other hardware that you need from an Impro side to get the system working?
Very good question. So you can go onto the OSS website and you'll see that there's a number of manufacturers that support the standard. What we are choosing to do is validate every single one. So in terms of the data sheet that we're releasing now, we've put a Perio because we've done comprehensive tests with that brand, but we are in the process of validating other brands, and we'll extend the support accordingly on our data sheets. In terms of the equipment that you need, predominantly what you need is secure credentials that support the OSS model, which we supply, and then you also need the wireless locks. The third element is that you need an updater. So that's a reader that will basically encode the credential and all the information that's required on the credential. And secondly, that will also retrieve transaction data off of the cards. So that's another key benefit of offline access control, is that you still have the auditability and you're still able to consolidate all of your transaction data, even though that it's offline, back into your Primo system. So every time you present your card back to this updater made up of one of our controllers and a Primo reader, you're able to derive all of the transaction data from all the wireless locks back into the system.
Thanks, Raphael.
Pleasure.
Hamish, nice seeing you again. Perhaps you can walk us through how exactly Primo is used to handle OSS locks.
Thank you, Gavin, and hello to everybody out there. So I think I want to just start by emphasizing the difference between the two online and offline solutions. So the online solution, as we know, relies on controllers and cabling. So the access rights are stored on the controller, and when somebody tags at a reader, the credential is passed up to the controller, and the controller makes a decision about whether they should be allowed to pass through the door. And at the same time, the controller records a access transaction in its local database, and eventually this access transaction is passed back up to the server. By contrast, in an offline solution, the access rights for the user are encoded directly onto the credential. So what happens when they present their credential to an offline lock is that the lock will interrogate the credential for the access rights for that user, and based on what it sees of those access rights, it will make a local decision on whether the user is allowed through that threshold. And at the same time, any information or any transactional data that is stored on the offline lock at the time will be passed through to the credential. So that includes any status transactions, as well as any access transactions that are stored related to this particular credential that's being presented. So it's not a lot of data every time, it's a little bit, and the user will not notice any discernible delay. It happens very quickly. And then, as Raphael referred to, there is an updater in the system, at least one. And typically this would be a Primo reader. There's a toggle control on in the software that allows you to set which readers you want to have working as updaters in the system. So as I said, it's typically one or a few updaters in the system, and they're typically placed either on the perimeter or near the perimeter. And the idea is that users of the system will badge on the updater perhaps once a day or once every 2 days, but quite regularly. And when that happens, any updates to their access rights are passed through the updater to the credential. And at the same time, any transactions that have been stored on the credential are passed back through to the system. So on the online system, the data is moving via cabling, and controllers. But as you can see with the offline solution, the data is moved around the system by the credentials themselves. So we've got a little video to play today to show the configuration and how the feature works. But okay.
OSS standard offline integration with Primo refers to fully offline Apereo locks that never connect to a controller or network and rely on card-based data exchange for both access rules and audit trail uploads. With online wired access control systems, cabling, connectivity, and maintenance drive up cost and complexity, especially across distributed sites. Historical offline access meant limited control, manual processes, reduced security. OSS changes that. Offline no longer means unmanaged or insecure. OSS uses secure credentials to carry access permissions, allowing offline Apereo locks to make local decisions while remaining centrally managed. At the center is the access control system, Primo, where administrators define who can access which doors and when. During card provisioning, keys are securely written to the user's credential. Offline Apereo locks then read the credential and make the access decision locally, no live connection required. When the credential is later updated, audit information is returned to the system via the OSS updater. From an administrator's perspective, the process stays familiar and they can control large sites without reprogramming every lock. An OSS site ID is required because it acts as the unique identity and security boundary for a specific site within the OSS offline system. Keys generated for OSS use must be securely stored and managed. Once applied, the key becomes a critical component of the OSS configuration and should be backed up appropriately, as loss of the key may require reconfiguration of associated credentials and locks. Customers may place updater readers at perimeter access points based on site layout and security needs. This checks and updates credentials before use on offline locks, reducing outdated permission risks. An OSS device is an offline lock that manages access to a door without the need for a continuous network or internet connection, allowing for local access decisions. When integrating OSS devices, it is expected that the device has been pre-configured using Apereo tools and assigned the correct door or door group ID. Now that the OSS site ID is configured, keys generated, OSS updater identified, and the OSS offline devices installed, we can proceed with enrollment. A credential holder is added in Primo. A secure credential is enrolled. using the OmniKey enrollment device. Set the credential state to OSS enabled to specify that a card credential should be used to read-write permissions for use with offline locks. OSS groups define the specific times and days when access to OSS devices is permitted for the credential holder. To provision smart cards for use with OSS, select the manufacturer and submit. So what does this mean for you? Lower installation costs, faster deployment, secure offline operation, central visibility and control. OSS delivers offline flexibility without operational sacrifice. This makes OSS especially useful in mining, large campuses, heritage buildings, student residence, remote sites, and warehouses. Once deployed, offline doors operate independently, and as a site grows, new locks can inherit the existing hierarchy. Credential holders simply present their credential, and it checks permissions locally, no live connection required. The credential is then presented to the OSS updater. Audit information returns to the system. OSS standard offline integration extends your existing access control strategy into environments that were previously difficult or expensive to manage.
Great video. Thank you, Hamish. Raphael, I wanted to come back to some of the use cases that you mentioned previously for OSS, and something that I picked up on sort of the architecture behind this is that we're not restricted to going to either online or offline, but we can actually combine it into a sort of a semi-hybrid type access control system. And I can see a lot of benefit in that. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about the strategic advantage.
Yeah, so I see this functionality as almost like an opportunity to do business development, because very often you always had certain sites that wouldn't go and install access control because of additional expenses. Very often the infrastructure element, or as we may have mentioned in terms of the heritage buildings, the fact that there's a lot of red tape when it comes to running cabling. I think there's also the concern when you dependent on other contractors fulfilling certain roles. So if you're heavily dependent on electricians providing you with power points, all of those blockers are removed with offline access control. So it allows you to provide quotes where perhaps previously you weren't able to. So I think that's, for me, is the biggest strategic advantage of providing this architecture, is that now you're able to extend your reach. So whereas originally you may only have been able to do a few of the buildings on a site, now you can do all of the buildings in the site as a result of being able to mix the architectures in there. As you said, like have the ability to do online where it makes sense and be able to have the transaction data coming through immediately, or alternatively where there isn't the infrastructure, use the secure credentials and still be able to get ultimately your transactions in one centralized place for reporting.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think this is a nice opportunity to ask the audience what their thoughts are on OSS. So on the screen, you should see a poll popping up. So please spend a few seconds and select one of the multiple choice answers. And while you do that, we're going to move on to the next headline feature, and that is operational compliance. Raphael, sticking with you, operational compliance isn't a new concept to Impro. We've had this previously in Access Portal, just under another name. Perhaps you want to talk a little bit about operational compliance and the benefits that we see with the use case and how it will be used moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So operational compliance is a bit of a rebrand on expiry reasons. And the reason why we've done that is because we feel that it speaks more clearly to the value proposition of the solution. And at the heart of what operational compliance offers end customers is the ability for a customer to be able to customize the access control logic for their own needs, particularly around the compliance use case. So we often, in most verticals, have certain requirements that have to be met by a certain time frame, and if that doesn't happen, you need some form of enforcement. And to do that manually is really very taxing. So here you can leverage off of the asset of Primo to be able to do that for you. So essentially what happens is that you can set up your own compliance rules. So for each individual, you can stipulate what they need to comply with and by when. And then the system will dynamically provide prompts to those users, warning them of upcoming compliance deadlines. And if the users, for whatever reason, neglect those prompts, then the access control will, at a certain date, predefined by HR or whoever is managing the system, will then block the users from being able to gain entry until those requirements are met. And this can obviously be done dynamically. You can use Primo to do the setup of this, but there's also APIs that are available so that if you want to do this in terms of linking systems together, then that's also available to you.
Thank you. Hamish, perhaps you want to walk us through how Primo handles operational compliance, and I'm sure you're going to go into a little bit more detail on that.
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Gavin. So when setting up operational compliance, the first step is to set up operational compliance conditions. So an example might be that all employees accessing the unsafe areas on site need to go for a medical checkup every 12 months. So then you've got a medical condition and you set the duration at 12 months, so after 12 months, that condition will expire. Then you could also have for all your forklift drivers, perhaps they need to update their forklift license every 2 years, so you'd set up another condition, and this one would be for forklift drivers licenses, and it would extend to 24 months. And then you might have another one which affects both employees and contractors, which is induction training, and you could have that set to 3 months. And so you build out a list of conditions that you want your employees to comply with in order to ensure health and safety on your site. Then you can also configure which operators are able to configure conditional operational compliance on your system. And we've given you granular control over that. So you can set exactly which users are able to work with the feature. Because this is such a critical feature, we feel that most businesses would not want a large group of people interacting with this feature, and so we've given you the ability to lock it down. So coming back to your conditions, you've got a list of conditions, and now the next step is to set up the messages for those conditions, and it's 2 messages per condition. The first message is a warning message, so we don't want that condition to actually expire and deny entry to the workplace. So for perhaps 2 weeks prior to the expiry of one of the conditions, when the employee badges, they will see a message come up on the LCD display on the reader saying that a particular condition is going to expire and they need to take the appropriate action to avoid that expiry. Then the second message that gets set up is on the event that the employee does not heed the warning, then their access is denied, and the message will explain which condition has caused their access to be denied and what needs to be done to reinstate it. So just recapping, you've now got a list of conditions, and for every condition, you've got 2 messages. The last step is to identify which areas of your site are considered unsafe and which areas are safe. And you've got a toggle on each access group that allows you to select whether it's a safe area or an unsafe area. And then if it's an unsafe area, then you will enforce the compliance conditions. And you need the safe areas to not enforce the compliance conditions, because you need to allow your employees access to the on-site clinic, or for instance, the training center, so that they can take action to comply with the conditions, and obviously reinstate their access to the work area. So once you've set up all of those things, then the last thing to do is to actually assign compliance conditions to your employees. So you go about assigning those conditions, and obviously for every employee, the start date will be different, and therefore the expiry date for each condition will also be different. So we've also got a video which we'll play through now, which shows.
Before the video, do you want to just tell the guys what hardware they can use for the messaging?
Yeah, certainly. Unlike the feature implemented in Access Portal, we are now supporting the IDEMIA readers and the messaging on the IDEMIA readers. And I think that opens this feature up to a lot more systems and sites. Also supported is the MDTA reader, and I think also the EABR reader. The BMTA reader is not supported in Primo. Right, we can continue with the video.
Every day, employees access environments where safety, skills, and compliance matter. Access control is not only about allowing entry, it is about ensuring every person is prepared and authorized to be there. Certain roles come with specific requirements. Employees working in hazardous areas must maintain valid medical clearances. Others require regular safety training, certifications, or competency assessments. Operational compliance ensures that critical requirements do not get overlooked. Operational compliance in Primo ensures that employee access is continuously aligned with operational, safety, and compliance standards. Primo enforces dynamic, time-bound requirements. Employees are proactively notified of upcoming requirements, and access is automatically restricted if conditions are not met. This creates a controlled, auditable, and automated approach to access management in high-risk and compliance-driven environments. Before we get started, let's take a quick look at the workflow steps you'll be following. Define which operators can work with operational compliance. Set up the various types of compliance that we want to enforce on site, including the duration for which compliance is valid before renewing. Set messages to warn users of expiry or to inform them of why their access has expired, for every type of compliance we want to enforce. Set which access groups are considered unsafe and need to enforce these compliance requirements, and which access groups are safe and are unaffected by this compliance feature. Once these steps are completed, HR is able to conduct compliance management, applying the operational compliance conditions to employees on the site. In this instance, the system administrator will configure the operational compliance feature for an organization, which requires employees to maintain valid forklift licenses. Operators belong to permission roles. To manage compliance conditions, operators must be granted permission. This permission is assigned to each operator login individually. The system administrator assigns access to one of the staff members in the HR department. This provides granular control over who is responsible for safety on site. Under the operational compliance section, we can set up multiple compliance conditions that are to be enforced on the site. These can include having a medical checkup once a year, safety training every 6 months, or getting a forklift license update every 2 years. In this instance, a compliance condition is set up to enforce valid forklift license every 2 years. Then name and duration of the compliance condition are specified, and the period for which a warning message is displayed to the user is also configured. The compliance conditions can be very frustrating for staff if the system does not communicate effectively with them. These messages are added to the list of messages already configured within the system. There are 2 messages associated with every compliance condition. 1. During the warning period that was configured, the system needs to warn the user of a compliance condition is due to expire and that they need to renew it. 2. If the compliance condition has already expired, then the user needs to be notified of the reason why they are being denied entry to the work area so that they can take steps to resolve the problem. The most effective way of communicating this information to the user is by displaying a message on the display of the reader the user is badging on. On a heavy industry or mining site, there are typically areas or assets that are unsafe, such as the foundry area or one of the forklifts, and areas that are safe, such as the on-site clinic, the HR offices, and the training center. The Operational Compliance Administrator can set the areas and assets that are unsafe by toggling the Operational Compliance to On for every access group controlling access to these unsafe areas. These are the areas and assets that will enforce the operational compliance conditions. HR is responsible for overseeing, managing, and enforcing these compliance requirements across the workforce. Let's explore what this entails. The HR operator selects an employee and assigns the forklift license compliance condition. The start date from which the employee will be compliant is also entered. This start date is combined with the compliance conditions duration, is used to automatically calculate when the compliance will expire and when to start warning the user to attend to the approaching expiry that will affect their access on site. There is a use same date toggle which can be used to apply the same start date to all selected conditions, if they are all to start on the same day. Eventually, one of the compliance conditions will enter the warning period prior to expiry. An employee arrives at work and receives a notification: your forklift license will expire soon. Renew your license. Another employee has ignored the warnings. They arrive at a restricted area. Their forklift license has expired. The Primo system automatically blocks access to the forklift, displays a message on the reader display to inform the user, and logs the event. The employee renews their forklift license in order to have access reinstated. Whether the condition actually expired before the user took action or whether they took action during the warning period, in both cases HR needs to update their compliance with a new start date for that condition. With Primo's operational compliance feature, access is automatically restricted to what is safe, compliant, and justified, building trust at every step.
Thanks, Hamish. Another great video. I think it's really about making full use of your access control system and being proactive rather than reactive when it comes to your sort of health and safety.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. So I think this brings us to the next poll for today's session. So audience, over to you. Another question should be popping up on your screen now. And while you do that, we can move on to our next topic, which is the improvements that we've made to the user interface, as well as some enhancements that have been done for reporting. So I know this has created a lot of internal excitement amongst the Impro team. Hamish, why don't you run through what's new?
Absolutely, Gavin. So in this latest release, there's quite a few changes, not only to reports, but also to the list views themselves, which are also basically reports. So the changes, well, one of the changes we've made is to move around some of the user interface controls to create more space for the report or list view. So that's the focus of the view, is the data contained in the report or list view. And so with the changes that we've made, you can now fit quite a few more records onto the view, and you can also fit more columns. So there's more width and there's more length, and therefore more space to display the data of interest. So that's one of the changes. Another change that we've made is to introduce some new filtering to certain reports. And then we've also introduced another sort of user interface or user experience feature, in that for certain reports, you have parent records that you can then click on and expand them to view underlying data. So I'll get into that in a little bit more detail further on. We've also made changes to some reports. For instance, the absenteeism report. We have introduced a date filter too. So now you can select the duration for which you would like to examine the absenteeism report. And what that does is it consolidates that report from 2 reports, which used to be absenteeism for today and absenteeism for this week, down to 1 report, which you can draw for any time period that you are interested in. And then we've also introduced a number of new reports. So the first of these is the tags not used report. And this lists out obviously any unused credentials that haven't been used for quite some time in the system. So they could be stolen, they could be lost, and it's always a good idea to clean up your system and get rid of any unused credentials because it impairs the security of your system. So the next report we've added is a door access report, and this is a list of all credential holders that have access to a particular door. And it also shows the access groups that give them access to that door. And this report is useful to check or to configure access rights within the system. And then we've also introduced an audit report in Primo. So whenever operators do anything within the system, whether that be to enroll a new user, to configure access rights, or even to draw a report in the system, all of those actions are recorded as audit data in the system. So there's a lot of data there. And all of that data is exposed in this audit report. It's a very comprehensive report, and with all of that data in it, it can, or it could be quite very complex to follow and to work with. But here we have introduced that feature that I was speaking about just now, where you can expand a parent row to view data behind that parent row. So for the audit report, the action taken by the operator is the parent row, and when you expand that, you can see the sort of activity that occurs in the Primo system to action whatever the operator was trying to do. And in so doing, we make what could be a very complex looking report look so much simpler. So you've got all of the data that you might need there. We haven't hidden any data. We haven't removed any data. It's all there for you to view.
It seems we may have had a slight temporary internet break. It's back up and running.
So apologies for the technical difficulties. We're going to share the next video with you guys.
The Primo software is designed to deliver the best possible user experience. The v2026.3 release takes the power of the list views in the software a step further. The data in the list view is what the user is most interested in. A typical list view in Primo used to look like this. There is limited space for displaying records. Now let's look at the changes made to achieve the user experience improvements. Other elements of the user interface have been moved or changed to provide the maximum space possible for the table containing the data of interest. We removed the header and footer to provide much more room for records in lists views and reports. Footer items like About Us and T's and C's moved into the avatar menu. The site selector, which was previously in the header, has moved into the menu bar. We removed the far right toolbar to give horizontal room to fit more columns. Engine status, contextual help, and the avatar menu moved to the top right, in line with the breadcrumb. Action buttons, add, back, acknowledge, pause, etc. now occupy the space the footer used to take. Menus that require a toolbar, such as the dashboard, will still display one. Table headers and footers are now sticky. When scrolling through a long list, like enrollment records or reports, the column headers stay visible, and pagination controls remain accessible without needing to scroll back to the top. A comparison of the old list view to the new one shows that the better use of space makes the list views now provide even more value. However, the changes have been applied so that the user still has a very clear understanding of where they are in the software, and the necessary controls are all still easily accessible and intuitive. This principle has also been applied to the reports. Reports now require an explicit Run Report click before executing. This allows the user to set filters before running the report. Upon initial loading, all filter selections are applied simultaneously. Subsequent changes take effect immediately. Predefined filters have been added above selected reports. These predefined filters will assist users who are new to filters in getting started quickly. Previously, the absenteeism report was divided into two separate reports, one for today and another for this week. The absenteeism report has now been consolidated into a single report featuring a week selector with predefined filters. Primo now has a comprehensive audit report that exposes all of the audit information collected by the system. An audit report is used to log and track operators' activities within the system for security, monitoring, and accountability. This includes everything from logging into the software to enrolling a new user, running a report, or configuring an action. Everything that any operator does within the system is recorded and can be displayed in this report. On a typical site, a large amount of audit data can be generated in a single day. For this reason, the audit report is limited to a single day of records. A fixed date filter allows the user to select a target date. All audit data collected for the target date is displayed in the report. Most recent activity appears at the top, and as you go down the report, you go further back in time. The audit information in the report is grouped. The action taken by the operator is the parent record. Expanding the parent record shows the activities that happened in the system to implement the action taken by the operator. If you are interested in the activity of a particular operator, then you can filter the report to show only the actions taken by the operator of interest. You may instead want to focus on a particular type of action, such as when the operator logged in. You can filter the report to show only the action type that you are interested in. The latest Primo release delivers a more powerful and intuitive experience.
Great video. Thanks, Hamish. You've got some more to share with us, don't you?
I do, yes. We've got a video dedicated specifically to the hours worked report. It's such a key report, and we've made some really nice enhancements to it. I think that it extended its usability quite a bit. One of those enhancements, again, makes use of the parent record and being able to expand it to view the underlying data for that parent record. And in this case, the parent record is a summary of the hours worked for whatever period you've selected. So for instance, if you've selected for the week, then you would see a summary of the hours worked per employee as the parent record. But let's say on some of those, you see that the employee hasn't worked the 40 hours that you were expecting. And so you need to examine that more closely and look at the underlying data. So expanding the parent record allows you to then see each day of the week that went to is then summarized in the parent record. And in so doing, you're able to see, for instance, that they were absent on one of the days, or perhaps they failed to clock in or failed to clock out, and therefore don't have the correct number of hours reflected in that day. So yeah, that's just one of the enhancements to the report, but we've got a video dedicated to that report, and let's take a look at how that's been changed.
We have made a few significant improvements to the way the hours worked report functions. The hours worked report provides visibility, accuracy, and accountability, making it valuable for operations managers, HR, and many more. Every day employees arrive, leave, take breaks, and keeping track of it all manually is very difficult. Manual tracking leads to errors, disputes, and wasted time. With Primo, every entry and exit is automatically recorded in real time. However, raw data alone isn't sufficient. The raw data needs to be interpreted in a way that makes it useful. This is the essential role that the hours worked report plays. You can generate accurate reports in seconds. No spreadsheets, no guesswork. From simple access logs to powerful workforce insights, the hours worked report transforms how you manage your people. Every record in the hours worked report shows the days worked, total hours worked, average hours per day, average first in clocking time and average last out clocking time for every employee. How the hours worked report works. The system automatically calculates working hours based on access events, pairing every in-clocking with a corresponding out-clocking to calculate the duration of the hours worked. When a credential holder has not clocked in yet, their first in-clocking will be missing and subsequent calculations will be incorrect. Jack Ferris clocked out at 14:10, but there is no in-clocking to pair with this out-clocking, resulting in 0 hours worked for the day. Michael Fouché has clocked in but has failed to clock out. Again, the report is unable to match all the transactions into in and out clocking pairs, resulting in 0 hours worked for the day. You may have noticed that the hours worked report allows any record to be expanded so that the underlying transactions can be examined in detail. The expanded child rows show the hours worked for each day in the period for which the report has been calculated. In the example, the report is for the current week. Expanding a parent record shows Monday to Friday for the current week. Child rows include the date, day of the week, first in clocking, last out clocking, and the hours worked for that day. This is particularly useful to analyze records that are outliers. They don't fall within the typical 7 to 9 hour duration that one would expect for a normal working day. When a parent row is expanded, it remains highlighted until it is collapsed. This helps users clearly identify which parent item the displayed child rows belong to. If every in-clocking is paired with a corresponding out-clocking, for that day, the record has an eye icon next to the date for information. Any records for which there is a mismatch and every in-clocking cannot be matched with a corresponding out-clocking, the record has a warning icon next to the date. Mousing over the warning icon will show a list of clocking times for the day. Any missing clockings are shown as question marks. The report reader is able to clearly identify the missing clockings that lead to the problematic hours worked result. The hours worked report opens with some default filters in place: date, site, and display name. These filters are fixed and cannot be removed. They will always be shown above the table. These fixed filters come pre-filled. By default, the report is run for the current week, across all sites in the system, including all credential holders in the system. These filter values can be changed as required. Several other filters, such as department, can also be added to focus on the desired information. Reports featuring collapsible child rows will permit filters exclusively in the table header of the main or parent table. Columns headings in the child rows do not permit filtering. The parent-child layout offers various options for exporting to PDF or CSV. Export all rows will export all parent and child rows, regardless of whether the child rows are expanded or not. The expanded rows export allows you to export all parent rows along with only the child rows that are currently expanded. Hovering over a credential holder record will export only the working hours history of the selected credential holder. This report can be scheduled to be sent out as a notification using the Scheduled Reports feature. The Hours Worked report helps organizations monitor and manage workforce attendance using actual access data rather than manual timesheets. The report is essentially a digital attendance and time tracking tool, using transaction data to show who worked, when they worked, and for how long they worked.
Great improvements. Really looking forward to using those reports. Raphael, I think this might be a nice opportunity for you to kind of tie up the whole broader release and sort of all the benefits with that. And then also, I'm sure the audience are quite keen to know when they can get their hands on this latest release.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So I think one of the things that we committed to when we launched Primo 3 years ago was that we were going to do quarterly releases. And, there's an easy way to do quarterly releases and there's a hard way to do quarterly releases. The easy way is to, put quick wins in terms of features and functions. But we've opted to really ensure that every single release has quality headline features. And I think in terms of this last release, the 26.3 release that we're going to release at the beginning of next month, we have some really quality headline features. As we said a bit earlier, the fact that we're introducing offline access control is not only a new architecture, but it's a business development tool. It allows you to install access control where previously you were limited to, or where customers wouldn't have a desire because of all of the additional costs that were involved in terms of setting up infrastructure. So the first feature I feel is a game changer, and as I say, it allows the channel to broaden its business. The second feature allows customers to sweat the Primo asset. It allows them to leverage the access control in order to facilitate their own compliance requirements. So that really does make life a lot easier for customers and allows them to really customize the solution for their specific needs, whatever vertical they're in. And then the third feature that we've spoken about in terms of the reporting improvements, we all know that if you can't measure something, you can't manage it. And now we're providing the tools for end customers to really get the value and be able to truly understand, how the internal credential holders and users are using the system. Are they following the rules correctly? And are they able to leverage off of dependent processes based on the accuracy of the data? So I think we've got a really healthy release from a functionality point of view. And again, just continually showing the consistency around the quarterly releases, and that if you've committed to the journey of Primo, you will reap the benefits of it. In terms of some of the questions that have arisen during the conversation today, there were questions around the hybrid system. So how does it work that you're able to have online and offline? And there's some questions around the credentials that would facilitate that. So if you commit to buying DesFire credentials, you can use that credential for both the online use case as well as the offline. So you can encrypt the data on the card, use it for the offline wireless locks, but you can also use it for those wireless locks that are connected to hubs or to the Primo range of readers. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was clarified. And then a second question that I think popped up that's worth maybe just clarifying again is that when it comes to the expiry reasons or the compliance element, you have got two options in the way you can implement it. One, you can leverage off of the Primo interface, and we've done as much as we can to make that as intuitive as possible. Alternatively, if you're wanting to integrate other ERP systems or HR systems, you can do that through the API. So you will have, as Hamish mentioned earlier, the necessary hooks to be able to configure that data yourself.
Great. Thank you, Raphael.
Pleasure.
So I think that's us for today. We're slowly running out of time, but I think there's one last poll for the audience to answer. And while you do that, just to close, I'd like to thank my co-presenters, Raphael, Hamish, thank you for your insights. I'd also like to thank the Impro team behind the scenes, working hard for the videos and sort of all the technical aspects to make all of this magic happen. And then a big thank you to the audience. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to all the news from our side. For those of you who couldn't join the full session, this recording will be made available on our YouTube channel. So please feel free to have a look there. Remember to like and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of the videos that you saw today will also be uploaded. And then just a reminder to download those data sheets and brochure to have a look at. And then if you have any questions that you'd like to raise or any feedback you'd like to offer with today's release, feel free to contact your local Impro representative or drop us a mail on info@impro.net. And with that, I'd just like to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to the next webinar. Thank you all.